He thought his birthday was going to be all about him. He had no idea that the reservation I made, the gifts I bought, and the money I planned to spend would end up creating one of the most satisfying nights of my life with someone who actually appreciated it. And the best part, I didn't have to yell at him, embarrass him, or do anything cruel. I simply took everything back. If you've ever given your time, money, and energy to someone who acted like they were entitled to it, hit subscribe, leave a like, and tell me in the comments, would you have done the same thing? Because this story is a perfect example of what happens when someone mistakes generosity for obligation. My ex and I had been together long enough that I knew exactly how he liked to celebrate his birthday. He had a favorite restaurant. He had favorite dishes. He had specific things he wanted to order. And every year, there was this unspoken expectation that I would somehow turn his birthday into an experience worthy of a 5-star review. The funny thing was, I didn't mind doing it at first, that I actually enjoyed planning things for him. I liked watching someone's face light up when they realized you had remembered the little details. I liked finding gifts that matched their personality. I liked making reservations somewhere special and thinking, he's going to love this. That's what made his reaction so frustrating, because instead of appreciating the effort, he gradually started treating it like the minimum requirement. His birthday wasn't something we celebrated together anymore. It was something I was responsible for. And there was another detail that bothered me. Even more. My ex had a strange relationship with money when it came to restaurants. If he was paying, suddenly he was incredibly reasonable. He'd look at a menu and say things like, "That's kind of expensive." He'd skip appetizers. He'd debate whether he really wanted dessert. He'd suddenly become the world's most financially responsible person. But if I was paying, that personality disappeared. Suddenly, everything sounded amazing. Should we get this? What about that? I've always wanted to try this. He would order like the menu was a personal challenge, and I noticed the pattern. At first, I tried to ignore it. I told myself maybe I was being overly sensitive. Maybe he just felt more comfortable ordering when someone else was paying. Maybe it wasn't intentional. But after enough dinners, you start recognizing the difference between an accident and a habit. The little things added up. And then came his birthday. I had already done what I normally did. I planned everything. I bought the gifts. I made the reservation at his favorite restaurant. I was mentally preparing myself for another evening where I would spend a ridiculous amount of money while watching him enjoy himself, without giving much thought to what had gone into making the night happen. Then something changed. We broke up. And suddenly, I was sitting there with all these birthday plans for someone who wasn't my boyfriend anymore. The gifts were sitting there. The reservation was still booked. And I remember looking at everything and thinking, why am I still doing this? There was no obligation anymore. No relationship. No reason to spend another dollar making someone happy who had already made it clear how little he appreciated what I did. So I returned every gift, every single one. It felt strangely liberating. I wasn't angry while doing it. I wasn't crying. I wasn't even particularly dramatic. It was more like removing weights from my shoulders. One by one. One gift returned. Then another. And another. The money came back. The reservation, however, was different. I could have canceled it. That would have been the normal thing to do. But then I had an idea, a very simple one. I called my sister. "Are you free on his birthday?" She was. "Do you want to go out for dinner?" She asked where. I told her. There was a pause. "Wait, isn't that his favorite restaurant?" "Exactly." And that was how the plan came together. No complicated scheme. No confrontation. No fake messages. No attempt to get my ex back. I simply decided that instead of wasting the reservation, I would use it for someone who would actually enjoy being there with me. My sister, when the day finally arrived, I remember getting ready and feeling something I hadn't expected. I felt excited, not because I was trying to hurt my ex, but because for once, I wasn't spending my energy trying to make someone else happy. I was going somewhere because I wanted to dot my sister, and I arrived at the restaurant, and immediately the whole place felt different. The lighting was warm, the tables were beautifully set. There was that familiar restaurant, noise in the background, the clinking of glasses, quiet conversations, servers moving between tables. And then we sat down. I looked at the menu. My sister looked at the menu. And for the first time, I realized something hilarious. We could order whatever we wanted. There was no one across the table sighing about prices. No one saying, "Do we really need that?" No one pretending to be financially responsible while secretly waiting for me to offer to pay. So we went for it. We ordered the things we actually wanted to try, then another dish. Then another. We shared everything. If something looked interesting, we ordered it. If my sister said, "I've always wanted to try that," my answer was simply, "Let's get it." And the food was incredible. Every bite felt like a tiny reminder that I had been overcomplicating something for far too long. We laughed, we talked. We tried everything. And somewhere between the appetizers and dessert, I realized that I was having a better birthday celebration than my ex probably would have had, even though it wasn't even my birthday. That was the irony. I had spent so much time worrying about making his day perfect, but once he was out of the picture, the exact same reservation became an amazing night for me. And then came the part that made the whole thing feel just a little more satisfying. I changed my profile picture. I chose a picture of my sister and me eating at that restaurant. Nothing dramatic. No caption aimed at him. No message. No, "Look what you're missing." Just the picture, and then I left it alone. I was already no contact with my ex. I had no intention of reaching out. I wasn't going to text him. I wasn't going to explain anything. I wasn't going to ask whether he'd seen the picture. That was the entire point. If he connected the dots, he connected them himself because there were only so many possibilities. He knew that restaurant. He knew it was his favorite. He knew I had made a reservation for his birthday. And now, on his birthday, there was a picture of me sitting inside that exact restaurant, enjoying a meal with someone else. I couldn't see inside his head. I didn't know whether he actually noticed. I didn't know whether he stared at the picture for 5 seconds or 5 minutes. And honestly, I didn't need to know. Because the real revenge had already happened. I had taken something that was supposed to be another obligation and turned it into a genuinely happy memory. That's the part people sometimes miss about revenge. The most satisfying revenge isn't always making the other person suffer. Sometimes it's realizing they no longer control your emotions for a while. My ex had managed to turn my generosity into something that felt like a burden. I was the one planning. I was the one spending. I was the one remembering details. And somehow, I still felt like I wasn't doing enough, but that night with my sister showed me something. The problem wasn't that I was generous. The problem was that I was being generous with someone who had started treating my generosity like an entitlement. There's a huge difference, and once I understood that, I stopped feeling guilty. I didn't steal anything from him. I didn't sabotage his birthday, didn't ruin his plans. I simply stopped providing benefits to someone who was no longer part of my life. And instead, I gave myself permission to enjoy what I had already paid for. The funniest part was remembering how my ex behaved whenever he knew someone else was paying. He would suddenly want everything. And now, I was sitting at his favorite restaurant doing exactly that with absolutely no guilt. My sister and I finished everything we ordered, every plate, every bite, and when dessert came, we didn't hesitate. We tried what we wanted. We laughed about how ridiculous the entire situation was. And as we walked out of the restaurant, I didn't feel victorious because I had supposedly ruined my ex's birthday. I felt victorious because I had finally stopped organizing my life around his expectations. That was the real ending, not the profile picture, not the restaurant dot, not the possibility that he might have been good at connecting the dots dot. It was the moment. I realized that I could take back my time, my money, my attention, and my peace without feeling selfish. Sometimes the best way to get even with someone who took you for granted is to stop giving them access to the version of you they took for granted. I returned the gifts. I kept the reservation. I took my sister. We ate everything we wanted, and I walked away with something much more valuable than revenge. I walked away free dot, so if you've ever had someone mistake your kindness for an obligation, remember this. You don't have to destroy them to reclaim yourself. Sometimes all you have to do is stop giving and start enjoying your own life again. And honestly, if he did see that profile picture and connect the dots, well, I hope he enjoyed the view, because I certainly enjoyed the meal dot. If you enjoyed this story, hit like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear that generosity should never be confused with obligation. And tell me in the comments, would you have kept the reservation or would you have canceled it?